Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Could I get a roll call?
Commissioner Laird,
Present.
Commissioner Milne, Commissioner Nicolason. Here. Commissioner North, Chairman Friel.
Here. Could you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make an addition to the agenda to be heard after the public hearing, the matter being the disposition of the current warming hut at the Nordic Trail Center.
Had a motion made to add after the public hearing tonight the disposition of the warming hut. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion on that?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion made by Commissioner Nicolason. Do I have a second? Okay, I'll second the approval of the consent agenda. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Doesn't look like we have any agreements or contracts or resolutions tonight, so I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of MS 23-1, a request by Sean and Tondi McCool for approval of a preliminary plat for the City View Estates, a major subdivision consisting of 3 lots on parcel of approximately 32.037 acres of mountain residential, MR1, zoning district. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes, rules of the Natrona County Commission, and other applicable laws. I would ask for those individuals who wish to address the commission to approach the lectern here in just a moment. Could I get a staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is case number MS 23-1, the application by Sean and Tondi McCool. The location of the property is on the east side of Casper Mountain Road at the base of the mountain along the south side of West Fork Road. The zoning is mountain residential. The minimum lot size is 10 acres. The property here is currently undeveloped, and the adjacent land use surrounding all sides is mountain residential. The subdivision is consistent with the Natrona County Development Plan and the Natrona County Zoning Resolution. The proposed City View Estates major subdivision is in compliance with the zoning resolution. It's mountain residential, and each lot has a 10-acre minimum. All lots are over 10 acres. The intent and purpose of the mountain residential is to establish and protect areas for low-density residential and accessory agricultural uses in accordance with the 2022 Casper Mountain Land Use Plan. And the proposed City View Estates mountain subdivision is located within the residential designation on the future land use map of the 2022 Casper Mountain Land Use Plan. And this is not working. No, that. The subdivision is in conformance with the general provisions and subdivision design standards. City View Estates major subdivision is in conformance with the general provisions and subdivision design standards of the 2013 Natrona County subdivision regulations. The applicant has provided evidence that a sufficient water supply system will be acquired in terms of quantity, quality, and dependability for the type of subdivision proposed. The proposed subdivision will have individual water wells and water cisterns. The applicant has provided evidence that a public sewage disposal system will be established, and the subdivision will have individual septic systems. The applicant has provided evidence to show all areas of the proposed subdivision which may involve soil and topographical conditions presenting hazards or requiring special precautions have been identified by the applicant, and the proposed uses of the areas are compatible with such conditions. The proposed City View Estates major subdivision plat has been identified with 65% of the plat having a 3 to 15% slope, and the remaining 35% with 8 to 35% slopes that may need to be addressed at the time of development. Necessary services, including fire and police protection, schools, recreation, utilities, and open space and transportation systems are available to serve the proposed subdivision. And City View major subdivision will be within the Natrona County Sheriff's jurisdiction and will require no additional services. The subdivision appears to be compatible with the surrounding area. City View Estates major subdivision uses will be agricultural and residential, and there's no detriment to the health and safety and general welfare of the inhabitants of the area. Commissioners, the surrounding plats are all in subdivisions themselves. This subdivision is essentially being placed in the middle of other subdivisions, so there really will be no detriment. Documentation satisfactory to the Board of County Commissioners that the improvement and service district requirements have been met. The maintenance of West Fork Road is included in the covenants of for the City View Estates major subdivision and the neighboring subdivisions of Casper View, Instrument 463222, and an ISD will not be required for this subdivision. And documentation that the subdivider has adequate financial resources to develop and complete water and or sewage systems or any other facility proposed or represented to be the responsibility of the subdivider, but not limited to the above mentioned. As stated, the required systems are in place and no financial guarantee is required. Considerations that planning did have on this, staff received the following comments. Road and Bridge commented that they see no significant impact with this subdivision. The Natrona County Health Department reviewed the subdivision for suitability for small wastewater systems. Small wastewater systems are possible, but may require a specialized design that would come later on in the project. The State Engineer's Office did eventually submit a report. In that report, they stated that the water right search revealed that there are no existing water rights of record that attach to the subdivision. And given this, further action on part of the subdivider or his agent in addressing Wyoming Statute 185306A XI is not required. And the Natrona County Conservation District commented on the slope and soil types. Additionally, erosion control and sedimentation risk needs to be addressed at the time of development as there's a high runoff rate, but there is no identified flooding issues. And a copy of the covenants has been submitted to the planning office. As of this date, the date of this report, staff has not received any written comments. Staff sent notices to 44 neighbors. Staff proposes to the Board of County Commissioners enter a motion and a vote to recommend approval or denial of the requested subdivision. And here's the map of the City View Estates major subdivision. And Commissioners, there is one area there that is kind of blocked in on one of the plats there. That is the design out of necessity, as there is land adjacent to it that someone else had already subdivided in that little square there. And it wasn't for purposes of trying to get around any issues with subdivision requirements. And that is all I have.
Anybody have any questions of staff?
Are you recommending that that be passed?
Commissioner, I don't have a recommendation as to the board whether or not it be passed. It's just a report for the board that the subdivision is in compliance. There is not a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, as this did not go before the Planning and Zoning Commission, as we don't currently have a quorum. So to move the process along and not deny the applicant of any further time, we decided to place this just in front of the commissioners.
So it doesn't need to go in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission?
No, Commissioner, it would have been they would have given a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners as to whether you approve or deny, but ultimately the decision is yours.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for the report. My understanding is that the 10-acre plus lot sizes meet with the mountain overlay for this particular district, right?
That is correct, Commissioner.
And that they are, this 10-acre plus size is generally consistent with what's seen along West Fork Road, is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of MS 23-1 to please approach the lectern and state your name and address.
Sean McCool. Do you say address as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're at 4236 Caribou, Casper, Wyoming.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners, are there any questions that I can answer? I'm Sean McCool, so we're developing the land. Are there any questions that I can answer or any concerns that any of you have? No?
Any questions? Doesn't look like it.
No? Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who wish to speak in favor of MS 23-1? At this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition of MS 23-1 to please approach the lectern.
Tracy Lamont, 9855 Crimson Dawn Road, Casper Mountain. This is a mixed bag for me because I am in favor of the subdivision, but I am totally in disfavor of how this is going down. And this all boils down to a statement I'm going to read to you here in just a second, but let me pass out a few things here if I could. I've tracked the Planning and Zoning Commission for many years, and I think just to enlighten you, what rose a red flag to me was I took and looked at the agenda for what I thought was today's meeting, but if you look at your agenda, it's dated August 1st, 2003, and I run down, and not August 15th, August 1st on it. So that raised a flag, and I got to looking at a public hearing, and I pay real close attention to township and ranges, so I dug a little bit deeper. And this is unusual. I said, we're totally bypassing the process of what's been used since 2013. And I started to dig further, and I find the City View Estates major subdivision, which I totally support in its present form. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to get crosswise with Sean and his wife on him, but this application's dated 8/15/2023. I'm going, boy, that's kind of strange, and we got a agenda dated August 1st. I said, boy, there's some indicators here to keep digging. So I look at this, and this is obviously the application that was put together. It looks like the agent from Paul Severson from WLC on it, but it says Planning Commission NA. And I said, what the heck is up with that? Is that non-applicable, or is that not available? So I've learned a little bit here from Jared's presentation and visiting with one of the cohorts from the planning department out in the hallway before the meeting. I found out that there's a real dilemma, and I had gone back and watched the YouTube video of the August 1st meeting, July 14th meeting, excuse me, when you came to an impasse for a replacement for the Planning Commission members. And Steve, you bowed out, or Chairman Friel, you bowed out on a conflict of interest on it, and I commend you for doing so. But that created a real quagmire, and then Commissioner Millen and Nicolason, they had other thoughts on what Dallas and Dave North had come up with. So always in the past, having been familiar with the process, because I've been through it myself a time or two when I was on the Parks Board, they asked for a letter, the commissioners did, of interest and a biographical sketch and the reason for your intent on wanting to apply to the Parks Board or the Planning Commission on it. So I was kind of set back and listening to the fact that there must have been some statute we've been in violation of for all of these years, supposedly. Because how it's worked in the past, you submitted your name, it went to a work session. On it, they kicked it around at the work session, came to a consensus, came into the commission meeting and announced who they had appointed. So in this case, it didn't go down that way. So let me flip to page 2 here. On its 2013 subdivision regulations in Natrona County, Wyoming. On it, and the last amendment was made December 3rd, 2021. I can't tell you what that is because it's not footnoted in here anywhere on them, but you go ahead and flip over to the next page. Chapter 2, types of subdivisions, exemption subdivision review process. Right down to section 2, it says planning hearing commission requirements. A public hearing shall be held as part of the review process for every minor and major subdivision. But here's the gotcha that I'm asking you to table this for tonight, and I don't want to put Mr. McLeod in a bind here, but if I've had to follow the procedures in the past and everybody else that's gone in to do a subdivision and go through the public hearing process, then we've got to be fair and consistent. We can't be jumping around like a gilly-galoo bird here and making an exception in this one case because we can't come to a consensus as a commission to fill out a full board of commissions for the Planning and Zoning Board. So you need to table this thing, and we'll go on a little bit further. The Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners, BOCC, so each hold, it says shall each hold a public hearing regarding the proposed subdivision. Notice of the time and place of the public hearing shall be published in a newspaper. So I don't know what's gone on since then because we have a very limited semblance of a newspaper with the Tribune any further, but if that's a weakness, we need to be figuring out a way to where we can meet this requirement, because the commissioners in 2013 came up with this and endorsed it, and everyone has since then, every board has since then. Shall be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the county at least 14 days before the date of the hearing. The only notice we had was this right here on the agenda to go dig it out and figure out what the heck's going on, and the agenda doesn't even have the right date on it. I know that was a typo on them, so we can chalk that up to that and just let it go, I guess. But anyway, the Development Department shall prepare and publish the legal notification. on them. So that and the other attachments go on and talk a little bit about public hearings too as well. And with that, I'm going to read a statement here and get out of your hair, okay? If I was two members sitting on that planning commission right now, I think I'd be thinking about bailing on it because they've been undermined here. They've been torpedoed. There's no question about it. And, you know, that brings me back to, you had three solid candidates, two which were on that board to start with, on it, that being Chad Zill and Matt Mitchell, and why they weren't reappointed is beyond me. And then you had another good candidate, that's a city engineer, Scott Baxter, and I didn't know that much about Mr. Baker on it, but I understand that's the reason why you stepped aside, Chairman, was because you and he worked together, and I don't know if it'd be a good candidate to have the chairman of the Board of Realtors, you know, sitting in that position and be able to, you know, when we're talking objectively about subdivisions and so forth, it looks like a major conflict of interest to me. But here's my statement. It said, blundering squeeze play positioning relative to the lack of appointing Natrona County P&Z Commission vacant positions back on 7/14, which could have been remedied by no later than 8/1, but not a thing was done at the 8/1 meeting. There wasn't even a mention of it. I've gone back and looked at the YouTube. Maybe you talked about it in your work sessions, but has resulted in a huge impropriety. And having total stall meeting, the operations and purpose of the two non-political, impartial, that's why we have a planning commission. Otherwise, they're bypassed and it's coming directly, it's political as hell. As heck, excuse me, on them. So in totally bypassing the Natrona County P&Z Commission public hearing process relative to the City View Estates major subdivision application results in outlawed malfeasance. There's no other way you can put it. I mean, you've got rules and regulations, and by right, it's an adopted law, I would say. You guys are the lawyers, Peter and you, Dell, so you can sort that out for me on it, but, and Heather on it, but at the hands of the BOT, or the BOCC members not voting in favor of tabling this application tonight. Period. Followed by sending it back to the P&Z Commission, so get them appointed. My understanding is you have 3 in the hopper that you've got picked out that need to get their credentials in here, but perhaps you could go back to Mr. Zill and Mr. Mitchell and get them reappointed. What should have happened in the first place, but for whatever reasons, and they were political, that's pretty obvious here, but sending it back for the required initial public hearing process. And I can't be any more specific than show you right there in the planning and zoning regulations. I'll wrap it up here. To do otherwise only results in gross violation of public trust. That's where I'm at. Why did we bypass the process? Because we grab-assed not appointing commission meeting members back on 7/14, that's the bottom line here. So, to do otherwise only results in gross violation of public trust and outright malpractice and smacks of collusion at its finest. In its present status, this application totally lacks fairness and consistency of the past, dating all the way back to 2013 at the very least. So it may be back before that on them. So, with that, I'm asking you to table it. And it looks like we got problems in River City because we're down to 2 people.
Looks that way, doesn't it?
So it didn't look to me like you're going to be able to finish the hearing on it. I'm not part of what's gone on here, if that's what proves to be the case, but this isn't right. You need to get your planning commission in order. You're doing Sean here a total injustice by not running it through the proper procedure. People will be second guessing that from this point forward. And they'll be undermining the 3 of you I'm disappointed that Jim isn't here. I'm disappointed that Dave had to leave. Tonight was the night to get this thing remedied. Chairman Friel, like I said, that's my position on it. And I would hope that, that you can expedite it by the next meeting and get Sean and his wife taken care of so they can get on with their subdivision. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. McCool, I apologize on behalf of what's left of this commission. We have two people that are not here tonight, and obviously one, another commissioner just got up and walked out. So it leaves two of us, and we cannot make a decision this evening because I need to have a majority. And obviously, and a quorum. And obviously, I don't have either right now. So my apologies on behalf of the county. I think it's very unfair to you. It's very unfair to the citizens of this community to have something like this happen. So please accept my apologies, and we will make sure that we have this on the very next agenda to get back in front of us so that we can, and I'll take note to the legal questions that were brought up this evening to make sure that we are following the process that needs to be followed. I will take this opportunity to tell you that yes, the P&Z right now does not have a quorum for it either. We ended up in a 2-2 vote. I did abstain simply because one of the candidates was in fact one of my employees. And so I had no involvement throughout the entire process. We ended up coming down to a 2-2 vote, and it couldn't be decided then. So we're going back to that process now, of which we will be having interviews immediately to get people on P&Z. So if in fact legally we have to go through P&Z and they have to hold that, we will get them in place as quickly as we can to move this process forward. But once again, I apologize on behalf of the county, on behalf of myself and Commissioner Nicolason that are sitting here for what just happened this evening. So with that being said, I can't even continue this meeting at this point in time. So we will stand adjourned and take up